vocals. How do we tune them? How do we edit them? I've got a track that I'm working on here for part of my series of covering songs by Japanese power pop band The Pillows and translating them to English. This is Last Dinosaur by The Pillows with me doing some English translation. Here's my vocal tracks down here. What I do first and foremost, before I get into any aggressive editing that's going to change up my whole project, Logic has a great little feature called Project Alternatives. I like to save a version, or what Logic calls an alternative, before I do that, so that if I really screw up and I go, man, I got in the weeds and did this wrong, I can go back to the original. I'm doing that before I mess with the vocals, although I did when I was recording these, because my voice was weak and it was new to me. I hadn't practiced this at all. I was just like, whatever, let's just do some takes. I did go ahead and comp the vocals, which if you don't know how to do that in Logic, go way back, record to a grid first off, record to a metronome, make sure everything's lined up with every take. Because now what I did, because everything was recorded in the exact same spot, every take, you'll see these are all the vocal takes. So here's a bunch of takes of like verses 1 and 2. Here's a bunch of takes of the chorus. Here's a bunch of just random takes of verse 3 and the outro. Logic makes it so easy. You click the little triangle down here, brings down your takes. I just say, go to the bottom half of a region, say, I think I like to take 6 on this phrase better. The edit is done. So I'm going to play back some of this. This is like half mixed. I turned off the tuning I've already added so that we can hear it as bad as it is. And I'm going to play it. There's our vocals. It's going to switch to another take. Now on take 6. Still on take 6. So literally in the middle of a word, I can make an edit if I record correctly and make sure everything's on top of each other. So that's the first thing. I just went ahead and did that beforehand because I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to comp a good enough take to do this edit with. So now that I have my new alternative version, I am comfortable and feel safe flattening the track. I like to do this just because I'm going to go into flex mode, and flex mode just does a lot more processing and takes longer if I keep all these takes alive. So this edit is safe because I made it my alternative. So now I'm going to flatten and merge it. So it's just a single new region. And now we can get into our finer tuning of the vocals. I'm trying out Slate's MetaTune, which I just turned on here, and I'm liking it. It's giving me more power than Logic's pitch correction. I don't have Antares auto-tune. I should have Melodyne, but again, usually if I'm working with vocals, it's people who don't need this much tuning, but Melodyne is the best. So we're trying out Slate's. And first and foremost, before I auto-tune, you have to know the key that your song is in. You have to know a little bit of music theory. And a hot tip to do that is if you at least know the chords you're playing, the notes you're playing, 4 out of 5 times, the first note, the first chord is going to be the key your song is in. So I have to go over here, choose my key, and then I can set how fast auto-tune reacts. So let's hear that in action. All right, so I have it set to, it waits for a pitch to be outside of any of these keys, which happen to be the white keys in C major on a piano. It waits 65.5 milliseconds before it starts grabbing and yanking it to the correct pitch. So you want the T-Pain from the late aughts.
You crank this bad boy all the way up.
Somehow you can make it look ahead on this little lightning bolt. I don't know, whatever. Sustain is like how aggressively it's going to work to hang on to the note. Now we're going to sound super robotic. So that's the T-Pain share effect. I like it more natural. I'm gonna go way back to 80-ish maybe. And not a lot of sustain. And then I can decide how much I want this mixed in. This is a nice feature to have just built in right there. And if you want some effects out of this is cool that the Slate MetaTune, it has a doubler built in. So if I mess with this, I'm gonna turn it way up. You'll get a visual and you'll be able to hear what's going on. Kind of fun. I'm not using it a ton. Like a little bit just to help my delay build some dimension and depth. All right. But actually, I'm going to leave that off while we do the real work. So a lot of people think about pitch correction a lot, but they don't think about timing correction, which Logic is very good at. It's not as good at pitch correction. I already did a lot of timing correction for this stuff. Up here's the drums. And if I turn on this, which is flex mode, these are all those lines that are whited out are where I nudge something. And I'm talking, I get weird, man. I'm nudging stuff like less than a 64th note on a 170 BPM song. What we need to do is do that to the vocals. So we got to get the vocals in time before we start tuning them. So like every place it added a dash line, that's where it found a transient that it thinks is the start of a vowel sound, a consonant, in this case because it's a vocal track. Nope. Like rhythmic. There we go. Okay. That wait is a little late. You know what I'm going to do to make this even easier? I'm going to have the kick while I edit underneath it. Just to give me a more visual cue of what I'm lining up. Let's see how that's... yeah, this is one where we really got to hit with the kick. Yeah, see, that makes a big difference between here. You can see it's late. It goes, but no, and that's not right. It should hit right with it. Let's hear it again. Much better.
And so on and so on.
Definitely pay attention to tails and how long notes are held as well, especially if there's multiple layers of vocals. This is easy, but vocals all hitting together and ending together is another thing that just took me from, when I was like recording with bands or something, just having everybody's heads and tails lined up on vocal harmonies, doubles, whatever, will make a huge difference and sound way less amateur. Also very important, if you record multiple drum mics, this is just an aside, extra tip. You record multiple drum mics. The reason I'm able to nudge the kick drum, because I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, only 5 drum mics on this that all recorded at the same time. If they're not grouped, you are screwed when you make that edit. So make a group, open the group settings, make sure editing and selection is checked off if you're going to edit multiple microphones that were recorded at the same time using flex time. Oh my God. If I'd gone this far and done all those little nudges without that group turned on, I would have wrecked this drum take. I would have had to go back to the backup alternative and start over that I make because I am too many undue steps in to have fixed that. All right, so that's the timing. And our options are we could stay with what we've got. It's passable. Because I'm using MetaTune, it wouldn't be the end of the world. I could make this a little more tight by speeding up the response time. And you'd hear that it's auto-tuned. I'm going to try to make it a little less apparent that it's auto-tuned by using flex pitch and doing basically the same thing with the pitch that I just did with the timing. Like just going through the whole song. And Logic has been very buggy with its flex pitch since it launched this almost maybe actually 10 years ago. They still have not fixed it. It's so weird, but if you're careful, you won't destroy your song. You could even fix something that's like a half step off. So if I zoom in, it will show me its best guess at finding like every place where I've shifted pitch. If I click on one, it's going to try to hold that pitch. And I can control a few different things. How much it drifts into the pitch. How much it drifts out of it. So like if I drop this way down, it's going to try to go down and scoop back into the next pitch. I can do fine pitch and vibrato are the ones that I like to mess with the most. I don't mess with gain. I get all that done either, if not in the performance, then either with gain across the whole region and then with compression in the mix on inserts and such. So my big things I look for if I'm going to go note by note is first check, did I even hit the right note? Okay, so I just pulled it up a half step, and then format shift is kind of like where it places it here. So like if I pull it from, I didn't reach the note, and I pitch shift up, I'll usually pull this down to clean it up a little. So this one, it's D sharp, which is not in the key. So since I'm sliding into the note on purpose, I'm not super worried about getting that exactly right. This one probably didn't need moved either, actually, but I was just kind of showing what's available. This one mostly just needs a little bit less vibrato. And also, before I go through and do this note by note, if you zoom just right, you get this. These like little, I think of them as like skyscrapers. I can click it and pull it. I'll usually like start by pulling those about halfway from like one of the biggest ones. And it, I'm pretty sure, goes ahead and corrects some of these parameters. Like you'll see I have a lot less fine pitch off now. But just like, you got to be careful because this gets very destructive very quick. And it will add artifacts all over the place. I'm kind of, if they're buried enough, I kind of let some of them live. But if it's to the point like only other audio engineers are going to notice, and it's just my personal project, somebody's not paying me, I'm just like, whatever, which this is. I don't like that I vibrato so much on anything I hold. So I do like to kind of pull these back down to about 50%. It's just me. Everybody's going to be their own taste for their own voice.
And so on.
One more time, as a reminder, new alternative before you get started. New alternative before you get started. New alternative. One more time, let's say new alternative before you start editing for drum takes, vocal takes, anything flex mode, just make a new alternative. That's an example where I was a whole half step off. Let's undo that real quick. So I just heard it. I was like, man, that one's really messed up. So that's what you don't get if you do the wide, pull the little towers together. If something's an entire half step off instead of like a few cents, it's going to tune it even more to the note that's wrong, which is what happened here. So I heard it even more because I was a whole half step, as in one key on the keyboard from white to black, flat. But so it actually went out of its way to find this C sharp even harder than the D I was supposed to hit, because it was so much closer to D sharp or C sharp than D. So that's why we do that, and the format shift helps it go just a little closer to the nasal where higher notes go. That's why you can't just grab them all at once in that wide view, pull everything down, and call it a day. You're going to make wrong notes wronger by doing that. You can only do that if somebody was already pretty darn close. Last one! Nice. That's the whole song. That's how I flex pitch. And we are done with flex mode. So we turn that off. We hide it. We do not want to mess it up. You might even want to make another alternative now. I don't know. I'd call this like the mix for stage. Because I'm going to, now I'm going to actually mix the whole song. So that way, I don't know, again, if you mess with something, you throw all that work you did out of whack, and all of a sudden you're hearing all these artifacts and robot noise, then back up to the old version. It's going to be your best bet. All right, so let's mess with the Slate tuner while we've been listening to what I already tuned. So you see it's still working a little. These are like the main notes I'm hitting where it's got a heat map. See input, here's where it started. The input map was a little wider before we did all of our fine tuning. I'm going to keep this pretty long and less sustained. And honestly, I'm going to pull the mix down because I kind of like the job that I did. Even in the performance was not terrible. So we changed the timing, we changed the pitch, and now things aren't late and early or whatever, and relying on this tuner way less. So last step, now that my vocals are done, this is usually the order I'll do it in. So I'll edit all the drum and bass, get those in time. Do the guitars, get those in time for specifically like a rock tune. Synths and stuff, I'm probably going to be doing MIDI, so that can quantize on its own. If I'm doing that all the time, I got to go back and study the basics. You know what I'm saying? And once all my edits are done, now I'm ready to go mix, which at this point, I'm like 60 to 70% of the way there because I like to do it as I'm going. So that's how you do vocal tuning in Logic Pro, either note by note or with a plugin like the new-ish Slate MetaTune, and get your vocals sounding in tune, but also in time, which you can do with flex mode in Logic. And now we've got very finely tuned in time and in pitch vocals. If you like the work I do, you can go to elstroproduction.com. You can learn more about what I can do for your audio, multimedia project, whatever. You can learn more about hiring me to do stuff. Enough of the live part.